Hi, I'm Garnbreak1, and this is Midgardia's cool crowdfunding show. I'm here today with Steve D from Relics, a Game of Angels. How's it going?
Yeah, yeah, great.
So, why don't you tell me a little bit about Relics?
Relics is a new role-playing game developed by me and a few other people. It's about fallen angels, not fallen as in sinful, but angels who have left heaven for whatever reason to come to Earth because they thought that was the better place to fight demons or help humans. But unfortunately, they found themselves marooned with very limited power and quite alone on Earth. And now God has abandoned Earth, shut the gates to heaven, presumably to fight the battle against demons in this, there goes a plane, presumably to fight the battle, the final war against demons, leaving everyone who has fallen stranded on Earth, trying to figure out what to do with their lives. So we're drawing from all sorts of angelic mythology and movies, things like supernatural series, the prophecy films, Wings of Desire, anything that the comics about Lucifer and the TV show. And yeah, it's a rules light storytelling game that really gets into the aspects of angelic life and their long lived experience and their engagement with their philosophical purpose.
That's pretty high concept.
Yeah, but it is also has a simple kind of edge to it that you're angelic beings. You've got flaming swords. You're here to kill demons and save the world. So it's not an inaccessible game.
Yeah, it's got both the philosophical elements to it, and then you stab a demon with a sword elements to it.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
So this runs on the Fugue system, right? The same as Las Vegas, which has forever been somewhere near the top of my I should play this list. Uh,
Yeah, I mean, Las Vegas is a very unique and wonderful product. We didn't originally pick a Las Vegas. We were just looking around at what kind of system we might want to do with the setting, and it just seemed to click really, really well. Um, and it revealed to be just more and more perfect the longer we went on. Las Vegas is about people waking up with amnesia and flashing back to their memories. But we figured it was just a perfect way to model the fact that these angels that we're working with have been on Earth for hundreds, maybe thousands or tens of thousands of years. And instead of having a skill list, they just flash back to all their previous lives. And there's so many great stories about long-lived beings that work like that. Highlander is one example where we keep flashing back through that movie to all the wonderful events of history lived through. Some people might remember the old show for Forever Night, which was about a vampire who was a modern day cop flashing back through his history. It's a really good narrative conceit that works really well with the kind of stories we're trying to tell.
Yeah, absolutely. And it beats trying to do a life path through all of that or something.
Yeah,
Uh,
exactly. And you get a life path as you play. Basically, you find out as you're telling your story more about who you are in the past, which is unlike most other games.
yeah. Well, hell, that's pretty interesting. So tell me about the art for this project. I noticed you got a fairly well known artist for it. It runs on a
Yeah,
tarot
we have
deck,
Dan
yeah.
Smith. We have Dan Smith, and I'm so happy about that. One of the big influences on Relics, of course, is the Great Innomine, which was an amazing game. It had some flaws, but it was a very unique kind of voice in gaming, and it certainly was something that I devoured a lot, and I love Dan Smith's art for that. And a friend of mine had Dan work on his project for a game called Star Children, which was kickstarted last year. A new edition of that, which great game about aliens and glam rock by Rich Ronaldo. And he said, "Look, Dan's great. I've got his contact details. He might be interested." I'm like, "Oh, of course." And it was just again another perfect match because he's so great at getting the feel and things that I want, and everyone loves his work. And he's really great to work with, and just has produced already some incredible images for us. And we've also got an Australian artist, Dean Maynard. Dean did some of our cover images, and he's working on an amazing cover for us as well. So, and they have both got amazing strengths. But people really respond to Dan Smith because he's such a fan favorite.
Yeah, I haven't actually had the chance to play in Nominate, but I'd heard enough about it that I saw the name Dan Smith and I was like, wait a minute, isn't that?
Yeah,
Yeah. So this runs on a tarot based resolution system, yeah?
That's right. Yes.
Can,
So that's coming straight from the Fugue system. We've made a few tiny little tweaks, but it's basically just a task resolution system. You shuffle the deck, you draw a card. If it's 1 to 6, it's a failure. If it's a 7 to 10, it's a grudging success. If it's a court card, it's a full success. And there's a few little tweaks for suit and for the major arcana. And if you've got something that might add to a situation, you draw 2 cards, take the highest. If there's a penalty being applied, you draw 2 cards and take the lower. So it's quite simple, quite intuitive. We're always aware that players don't always have a lot of time these days. We didn't want to make a high crunch kind of system because that's not really the focus of the game. It's all more about getting into the character drama. Nothing against those kind of systems, but they're just not the kind of things I'm interested in creating as well. That was, again, that discussion that we had about, well, that I went through talking to other people and going through my mind, because it was really just me. I just get used to talking about a company in the plural.
yeah.
I looked at lots of systems, and I looked at crunchier systems, and I began sort of figuring out how I might write it in those, and I was like, no, this just doesn't work for what I want to do. So yeah, we considered like even doing things like a Powered by the Apocalypse version or a Cortex version, but it just eventually we found what we wanted and it clicked.
I do have a soft spot for Cortex deep in my heart. I've got a physical copy of the Smallville game somewhere over there.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
I adore Smallville and Cortex, and I wrote some stuff for the Cortex Hackers Guide.
oh, really? I have that.
Yeah, so yeah, it was Cortex was like the original sort of top of the list for what our original plans were, but some
yeah.
things change as you go along.
Yeah, and I can certainly see how that would mesh with the themes, with the like relationships and values, especially, would play into the angelic thing pretty well. But
Yeah, yeah,
I mean, yeah, the whole flashback to the various events of your life is perfect for such long-lived
yeah,
player characters.
yeah,
So
yeah. It works really well.
we covered some inspirations already, but what in particular like inspired you to create this project as it is now?
Uh, I've always been kind of interested in angels for the longest time. Um, I watched Highway to Heaven as a little kid, which was kind of a saccharine view of angels, but it was this fascinating idea of the outsider. I guess I finally sort of got the motivation was when I was working on some White Wolf stuff. Wrote some stuff for Vampire the Requiem, and I liked the idea of the setting, but I had to do a lot of research to sort of get on top of it and contribute to it. And I was like, this would be a lot easier if it was my own setting. So I began sort of figuring out what I would do if I was going to make something that was a little bit White Wolf-esque, in the sense that I wanted something that had different kinds of supernatural creatures, that allowed for different kinds of factions and groups, and that had political play but also action play, and had a history across all of history. Because that was always fascinating with Vampire, where you could go, what are the historical ideas about vampires and how they have evolved and things like that.
Yeah, and you
Um,
get games like Vampire the Dark Ages or Werewolf Wild
yeah,
West.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I sort of was like, well, what would my kind of White Wolf setting look like? And I started making notes, and that was about 10 years ago or something. And obviously, all the games that I play have sort of informed that as I've gone along. We've talked about some of them. In Nomine was a big influence. Yeah, trying to think of some others. I mean, the simplicity came out of lots of things. Um, people have mentioned Cult, and I actually have never played Cult. I know it uses the tarot, and it is about angels and demons, but certainly wasn't one of my influences. I don't know what else springs to mind. I mean, I played a lot of Warhammer as well, but it's not really that kind of game.
Yeah.
Leverage was another influencer, of course.
The
Another great Cortex game. I
yeah.
do love the heist genre. And when I was sort of putting together the setting, I was like, well, obviously, I wanted this idea of powerful objects. And that just was like, oh, of course, there's going to be a heist element to this game. So that's another one of the strands of those sort of more less philosophical aspects, is that angels are desperate to reclaim these holy objects. And so you've got Indiana Jones, Lara Croft, Hudson Hawk, and Leverage, and all this sort of thing of like, we have to steal these amazing objects. And so that was another great inspiration I was able to bring in.
Hudson Hawk, that is a name I haven't heard in like 15 years. Well,
Yeah,
since Hudson
it's
Hawk came out.
an old film and a very strange and silly film, but it's got some amazing ideas in it, which I love.
Yeah, yeah, I watched it well, probably 5 or 10 years ago. Weird
Yeah, there's
film.
a there's lots of references in the game in Relics that are oblique. So if you know like your heist genres and your angel stories, you'll be reading something and go, hang on, I remember that plot. So we've got things like there's references to the Da Vinci Code, but with a
Right.
different painting. And there's a reference to like Hudson Hawk. If you remember, there's this backstory about Da Vinci's inventions.
Yeah.
Uh, Trying to unlock. So we have this sort of implication at one point that Da Vinci was able to speak to angels, and there's an angelic relic that he hit a clue to. So
Yeah.
you've got hints of all these fictions that run into it.
But done in such a way that, if you don't know the thing, it's not going to stick out to you as like, hey, that's weird. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly.
That's the
Everything.
ideal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Little Easter eggs that don't require extra understanding, but give you a little bit of a smile if you know what we're talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. Uh Man, now that you've mentioned demons and the heist aspects to it, I gotta ask, is there plans for like a demonic equivalent of this, like 5, 10 years down the line? Or like a demon source book?
Yeah, a lot of people ask that. I have some ideas about what might be the second game, but if you get into the lore, there's reasons like I find demons less interesting in many cases because it's too easy. Whereas angels have this question about how good are we supposed to be? How much good can we do? And that comes up in so many of these angelic stories about it deals with the nature of what is goodness, whereas demons don't have to face that. They can just do whatever they want. The actual thing I have as a mind for a possible sequel is looking at other kinds of gods in the supernatural universe that might be considered demons, and moving from angels up to gods in a possibly sort of like the next step is to say like God's gone and the world is in chaos and there may be an apocalyptic war. And the question then is, will other gods come onto the stage and make themselves known? So it's more, I guess, more into that sort of Sandman universe kind of
Yeah.
exploration, as opposed to what are the demons up to.
In the rough vein of like the God Punk novels or Jonathan Hickman's God is Dead comics.
Yep, yep.
Yeah.
Um, so that's at the back of my mind in a long time. I need a break first.
Yeah, I understand. Uh Absolutely. Gosh, the art for this is lovely. So why don't you tell me about some of the backer levels, stretch goals, all that kind of fun stuff?
Yeah, so because the game uses tarot, we have a unique tarot deck that we're getting Dan and Dean to produce. It's going to be a beautiful artifact with characters from the game, and every card will have an angelic being on it or something that reflects the Relics universe. And we're making a beautiful hardcover book with the same sort of art. And a lot of people just want the tarot deck, so there's an option for that. You can get the digital book, and you can get the hardcover book, and you can get any kind of combination of those. If you want, just the tarot or just the tarot and the digital rules, we've got all those options for you. We haven't got anything more, like we didn't have any early bird deals or anything like that, but we do have lots of stretch goal ideas. We just went over 75%, and we're hoping we'll fund by the end of the week, maybe. And the stretch goals are all just about supplements. We have a lot of great writers lined up who want to write adventures for us and setting guides. We want to do like a series of city guides, and they'll all be released as PDFs. So if you're backing at any sort of significant level, you'll get access to all of those as well. So the more that people back, the better the deal becomes, because you just keep getting all this cool stuff as well. And we get to flesh out the world. That's the really exciting thing. I get to go to other authors who have been chomping at the bit going, yes, we really want to write this stuff. And go, yes, off you go. Tell me about this city. Tell me about this adventure. And that gives the game a lot more life and longevity. And it's great for players because they can just, pull something off the shelf and get more and more and more ideas. So we are really hoping that we get to do all those things. It's all just it's the nature of the Kickstarter is you don't know. So I've got these ideas, and whether we get to do them, we find out. and hopefully people are excited about it and want to find out, want to take us there.
Yeah, well, I'm certainly intrigued. In the 25,000 Australian dollar one, Angel's Guide to Las Vegas, that sounds like a ton of fun.
Oh yeah, yeah. The so if you go to on the Kickstarter, you'll see there's a link to the quick start rules, um, and in that we provide a free adventure and a short version of the rules, and pre-gen characters. So that's enough to you to sit down and actually play a game. And the adventure in there was written by Jake Nelson, who's one of basically the other writer on this project besides me. He was in Vegas last year. And knows it really well, and so that adventure is about a hotel heist, a casino heist in Vegas. And so as soon as I was like, what else can we pitch? He's like, I'll do a whole city guide for Vegas. And he knows it well, and he knows the spirit of Vegas. So that's going to be an amazing product. Yeah, it really fits with the cards and the feel, and it makes a nice companion, of course, to Las Vegas. We've come full circle almost there. So that's going to be an exciting project. Also got someone working on possibly a guide to Berlin, which has this whole kind of different mood to it, that kind of more philosophical and reflective thing from Wings of Desire. So there's a lot of things we can do. There's even some people have done last month. There was a special zine month on Kickstarter. I'm sure you may have come across this.
Yep.
And some people who are fans of Relics just got together and wrote some fiction for it and put it into a zine, and that sold like 50, 60 copies. And they're looking at doing another issue of that as well. So
That's super cool.
what's great, yeah, people want to write for us and want to tell stories. And we just want to be able to pay them a fair rate so that they can.
Yeah, I was down in Las Vegas almost exactly a year ago, so I might have to run that quick start.
Yeah.
It's a heck of a place.
It's pay what you want, and it's a really interesting adventure that is not what people might expect for an angelic story, because it's sort of this casino heist, and it's very much it's action packed, and it's full of Jake's wonderful sense of humor as well. He has a lot of love of great puns and jokes, which he brings to the setting, which is a lot of fun.
Yeah. Well, hell, those are some good stretch goals, man. Like
Yeah.
a nice mix
We're excited.
Yeah, a nice mix of adventures and like here's just an entire city.
Yep.
So
Yeah, they'll all be delivered by PDF, so they won't put our costs up too much.
yeah, yeah, maybe like a full physical version, like 2 years with more stretch goal stuff or whatever.
Yeah. There was always a possibility that we sort of combine them all, but I was looking at so Shadow of the Demon Lord was one of the examples that we looked at as a great successful Kickstarter, and as well as having some physical stuff, it was just like every little stretch goal was more PDF stuff, and that meant that every week or two you were getting more stuff. We won't be able to be that regular, but not having to go through print makes we can deliver things to you really, really efficiently and quickly. And most people use PDF devices these days anyway, so you get a beautiful book that you can refer to, but then you need an adventure, you just pull out your little e-reader. It saves us money, and it saves you storage space. So it's really the best deal, we think.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got like some physical books over there, but I can't say the last time I actually used one in a session.
Yeah, that's right.
They're very pretty, but
yeah.
So
and we understand that, so that's why we really wanted to go all out. We've got a high goal because we want so much art, and we want to make the book pretty. So if you do invest, you're getting a beautiful deck and a beautiful book. So there's that appeal for it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So how did you get into tabletop gaming?
I've been a board gamer pretty much my whole life. Just kind of loved games as a kid. Was kind of making my own of them as well. Like we couldn't always get the games I wanted, so I just get the craft things out. Was a huge Talisman fan in my early teens, sorry, and then stumbled on D&D through that. Found them at the same store, and was playing role-playing games ever since then. Worked on magazines when I was in university. Made my own little online magazine called Places to Go, People to Be, which is still around in the French version. Some people in France liked it so much they made their own version. And from there, I just started working as a freelancer. So I've worked for, um, I mentioned Vampire. I worked briefly on the Buffy game. I've worked on Warhammer Second and Third Edition, and hopefully soon on Fourth Edition, which is great. I love Warhammer. Um, and yeah, just working regularly as a freelancer for most of my things, and doing my own little game designs as well. All my games are on tinstargames.weebly.com. So there's all the stuff about relics there, but there's also a lot of smaller games I've written. People might have remember There Is No Spoon, which I wrote about 10 years ago about the Matrix, actually 15 years ago now. And a few other minor games that I did for Game Chef, and that I've they're all pay what you want on drive through, and they're smaller games, so this was a much bigger project. But you can also again get them, see if you like the kind of games I make, and yeah, so it's been a slow process of just working and writing, but it's actually not that hard to get into the role playing industry. Thankfully, it's quite a porous industry. We make small, simple games to some extent, and the internet allows you to self-publish or to freelance quite easily. So um, I've been lucky, but I've also, it's a very welcoming industry. And if anyone else, if you're ever interested, have a go, because people are great and there's a lot of support for new people and new writers. And yeah, and if we just need more stretch goals, people might want to contact me as well, because once we hit, I've planned out the first couple of levels beyond 30 grand, but if we go beyond that, I'm going to need more writers, and people might want to write about white relics, so get in touch.
Yeah, I mean, I used to write, but it's been a long time. I'm just a DM now.
Yeah. Um, Sometimes, yeah, you just got to do what interests you at what time, because there's not a lot of money in it, but it's we hope to pay our writers really well. But yeah, it's a thing about passion. Um,
Yeah,
and yeah, but it can be a wonderful thing to create these fictional universes for people to play in, and we're actually, a lot of the people who are working on our stretch goals and our project are newcomers to the industry, and so we're really happy that Relics can be that for those people as well. So if you're a new writer and you're listening to this, you've never written before, you've got an idea, get in touch and we'll see what we can do.
all right. Well, that's pretty interesting. It seems like you've worked on a ton of systems. I was kind of counting off on my hand there. Saw cinematic unit system in there, storyteller
Yep.
or
Yep.
storytelling. Requiem is, um,
Mm.
and then I kind of lost track. I was just thrown by the mention of Buffy.
Really good game.
Yeah,
I worked on just some supplement stuff, but the writing in that game was really impressive, and the way that it used the setting in such a really clear and coherent way was really impressive to me. And it helped me get really interested in using cinematic tropes, which is again part of Relics, because these flashbacks are very cinematic concepts, and that's why. Yeah, so people who want a very simulationist point of view will like, well, didn't I know that the whole time? But the audience didn't know it. So the flashback mechanic, it means you have to have a cinematic kind of approach. Um, and Buffy is another example of doing that really well, where the sense of the fictional reality was what mattered.
yeah, absolutely. I have a soft spot deep in my heart for licensed games. They're not always good, but they're always interesting.
That's right.
They're
They are.
usually
Yeah.
interesting. Some of them are not. Well, it's been good talking to you. Anything else you wanted to bring up before we put an end to this?
No, just please take a look, and if you're interested, throw us some money, because the quicker we back, the more stretch goals we can get. So just and spread the word. Games are a word of mouth medium.
Absolutely.
So if you enjoy it, if you're interested, find a friend and say this is something you might like.
All right. Well, it's been great talking to you, Steve.
Thank you very much. I'm very happy to be here.
All right. Have a good one.
See ya.